17 and 18, and it made it as far as Issachar to the east, according to Yahushua 17 and 10. Both Ephraim and Manasseh met together at Issachar. As we can see, it's not like that in the Middle Eastern model, so now we see that Issachar would be east of these two tribes. The lot then passed to the tribe of Benjamin. We know that Benjamin was between Yehuda and Ephraim, which would put them in the very northern tip of Utah.
And their border on the north side was from Jordan, and the border went up to the side of Jericho on the north side, and went up through the mountains westward, and the goings out thereof were at the wilderness of Bethaven.
It's important to understand that the wilderness of Bethaven is that same wilderness from Jericho to Bethel, mentioned in the tribal description of Ephraim in Joshua 16.
And the border went over from thence toward Luz, to the side of Luz, which is Bethel southward, and the border descended to Adarothadar, near the hill that lieth on the south side of the nether Bethoron. And the border was drawn thence, and compassed the corner of the sea southward, from the hill that lieth before Bethoron southward, and the goings out thereof were at Kirjath-Baal, which is Kirjath-Jearim, a city of the children of Judah. This was the west quarter. And the south quarter was from the end of Kirjath-Jearim, and the border went out on the west, and went out to the well of waters of Naphtali.
Keep in mind, went out on the west does not appear in older translations.
And the border came down to the end of the mountain that lieth before the valley of the son of Hinnom, and which is in the valley of the giants on the north, and descended to the valley of Hinnom, to the side of Jebusi on the south, and descended to En-Rogel, and was drawn from the north, and went forth to En-Shemesh.
Their northern border was from Jordan, and it went up to a higher elevation to Jericho. Jericho, or Jericho, in modern Israel is the lowest city on earth. Therefore, no one can technically go up to Jericho in the Middle East. Then the border went through the mountains, not the hills, westward until it approached the wilderness of Baith Awun, also known as Beth Havan, and to the south of Kirjath Yearim. Now, the King James then says that the border went out on the west toward the waters of Naphtali. The phrase went out on the west does not even appear in older translations like the Septuagint. That phrase does not even exist. It probably was added later to better fit the Middle East. So anyway, the south border went east from Kirjath Yearim to the waters of Naphtali, which is the modern 3-mile spring in Nevada. It fits biblical description so much because not only is it the same line of latitude as the other places of southern Benjamin's border, but this spring also comes from a hill, just like what scripture says. From the waters of Naphtali, scripture says it went past the valley of Hinnom to the north and past Yebusi, aka Jerusalem. From Hinnom, it went into lower elevation to Ayin Rogel, meaning the traveling spring. That is modern day Thousand Springs Creek in Nevada. The border then went north to Ayin Shamash, or the Fountain of the Sun, which is 108-degree red hot spring in northwestern Utah. Then to the east it goes to Baith Ugla and to the Yarden River. Baith Ugla, or Beth Ogla, would be the place between the Jordan River and the Salt Sea, or the area between the Bear River and the Great Salt Lake. This area right here is home to a type of bird called the ruffed grouse, which is a type of partridge. Now, what's important about this? Well, Beth Ogla, or Baith Ugla, simply means house of a partridge, and this part of Utah has more partridges, or ruffed grouses, than any other part of Utah. And these birds are not found in that many places within the Holy Land. This is the whole territory of Benjamin, even 14 cities. The border then passed to Shamaun. Now Yehuda's territory was too big for his population, therefore he shared his land with Shamaun. The cities of Shamaun that were taken out of Yehuda are too hard to identify because there is not much information on those cities, but we know that Beersheba was one of those cities. Beersheba was the southernmost city of Yehuda, according to 2 Samuel 24:7. Also, Beersheba was known for its large supply of groundwater. It also was near Gerar, which was in a valley of Philistia between Shur and Kadesh Barnea. This puts Gerar in this valley east of modern Los Angeles. This specific valley fits all of Gerar's biblical qualifications. The Valley of Gerar was the modern Banning Pass of Southern California, and Beersheba was in the North Chuckwalla Mountains in modern Joshua Tree National Park. The two places are only a 2.5-day journey away from each other on foot. This area is higher in elevation compared to Gerar, as Genesis 26 and 23 implies. The Chuckwalla Mountains are 3,600 feet above sea level, while the land within the Banning Pass is 1,590 feet above sea level. This area also has tons of groundwater. There are springs and man-made wells within the Chuckwalla Mountains. Now, Shamaun only has 17 cities. Yehuda had 112 cities, meaning Shamaun owned only 1/6 of Yehuda's land. It must be noted that the tribe of Shamaun does not have a shape. Both Simeon and Levi were prophesied in Genesis 49 to be scattered and divided throughout the nation. And in Simeon's case, he was scattered throughout the territory of Yehuda. We do not know the shape of Shamaun, but we do know that they owned 17 cities as well as Beersheba throughout the land of Yehuda. Now the lot came to Zebulun. When you think about the inheritance of Zebulun, the first thing you may think of is the sea. Because Genesis 49:13 states that this tribe will dwell by the sea and be a haven of ships. Already, the Middle Eastern model contradicts this description, as Zebulun does not even border the sea. The first border description we see is that Zebulun stretched all the way to a place called Sarid. Sarid means survivor. There must have been some terrible event that happened there that killed many, but some remained, causing this city to be called Sarid, or survivors. Then the border went from Sarid westward toward the Great Sea, to a river that is near a city called Jokneam, which means they will be lamented. This must mean a catastrophic event occurred in this city as well. But in this city, a lot more of the people, if not the entire population, must have died off, causing this city to be known as Jokneam to the outsiders. Again, Jokneam means they will be lamented, which means they will be mourned for. This was Zebulun's western limit. Then the border went back toward the east to a city called Chilith-Lothabar, which means side of Mount Tabor. Tabor is a mountain range, which means broken region. Then the border went to a higher elevation to Japhia, or Yaphia, meaning brightness. Then the border went out to the east again to Gath-Hefer, which means wine press. Then the border passed to Ramon Methar, meaning pomegranates. From thence, the border passed along to Nuah, which means to shake. Then the border turned north to Hanathon. The border of Hanathon was the valley of Yiphdathiel, meaning God will open. Let's piece these cities in line to the American model. Sarid was the city that was northwest of Zebulun, near the Great Sea, aka the Pison, aka the Pacific Ocean. A tsunami or a great storm may have flooded the area, killing many people, but not all of them, hence Sarid, meaning survivors. Further west was the river of Jokneam, near the city of Jokneam. This same flood could have destroyed this city as well, but this time it annihilated the complete population because it was closer to the sea. This is why Jokneam means they will be lamented. The river of Jokneam would have been modern Eel River near Fortuna, California, and Sarid would be toward the east of it. East of that was Chilith-Lothabar, which means side of Tabor. According to Jeremiah 48:18, it is among other mountains. In the Middle East, however, it is a singular hill. It means broken region, and the Lassin Mountains are a group of volcanic mountains that literally destroy themselves every time they erupt. The border then went out to a higher elevation to a place called Japhia, which means brightness. It would make perfect sense for the land of Japhia to be the southern part of the Sierra Nevada mountain range near Yosemite National Park. From satellite view, these mountains look full of snow, but there is actually very little snow upon those mountains. The rock itself is made out of nearly pure granite, causing the entire area to reflect light and glow with brightness. Then the border went east to Gath-Hefer. In the area east of Yosemite, there is a desert area surrounding Death Valley that happens to grow grapes in many scattered locations. This is the Vitis gardenia grape, and it has always flourished in Southern California's dry soil. The exact location of Gath-Hefer is unknown, but it is somewhere near Death Valley. As noted before, Gath-Hefer means wine press. Therefore, the area had to have had wild grapes. The border then passed along to Ramon Methar, city of pomegranates. Just like Gath-Hefer, The exact location of Ramon Mathor cannot be determined because pomegranates grow in scattered locations as well. The border then passed to a place called Nia. It comes from the word nuwa, meaning to shake. Now, why would a land shake if not because of an earthquake? Southern California is very known for its earthquakes, especially around Death Valley, which is an earthquake hotspot. Because we are still on Zebulun's east border and the direction did not change yet, the city of Nia would be near the Death Valley area. Another place known for its earthquakes near the land of Zebulun was Marala. Marala literally means earthquakes. Marala does not appear in scripture as a city, but as a geographic reference point. We know that Marala was near both the sea and Jokneam, allowing us to realize that Marala is in fact the Hebrew word for the modern Cape Mendocino in Humboldt County, California. This body of land sits upon the San Andreas Fault, which is why Humboldt County has been known for earthquakes and tsunamis. After the border made it to Nia on the southeastern coast of Zebulun, then the border turned north to Hanathon. The exit of Hanathon was the valley of Jiphthothiel. Jiphthothiel means God will open. This is a considerably strange name for a valley. A valley is an area between two mountain ranges, therefore a valley is already open. Maybe the valley was closed off by water and cut off interactions between the people on both sides. Therefore, the valley was called God will open to give a sense of hopes that one day the valley will be accessible. It is important to understand that California's Central Valley is actually the world's largest valley, and at one point the valley was filled with a lake called Lake Corcoran. Due to recent damming and climate change, this lake is now completely gone and the valley is opened up. Lake Corcoran was actually the sea that Zebulun is supposed to border. This is also the sea where Solomon had ships travel through to bring cedar wood from Lebanon to Jerusalem. We know that King Solomon had a port in Ezion-Geber. I proved the precise location of Ezion-Geber in Migration Series 5. It's on the fork of the Colorado River, which is located in southeastern Nevada. I also proved how the Colorado River was also considered to be a part of the Red Sea. According to 2 Chronicles 2 and 16, we can see how the wood was traded. It was first cut from Lebanon and brought through the sea on floats to a place called Joppa. Then from Joppa, it was carried up to Jerusalem. Ezra 3 and 7 says, Sea of Joppa, implying that Joppa has its own sea, which is a separate body of water from the Great Sea. If this is true, Lake Corcoran would be the Sea of Joppa. They would have had to carry the lumber by sea because it would be completely difficult to carry it on land back then due to its rough terrain. So in America, they could have went straight from Lebanon to Jerusalem without the need of sea travel, but in order to do this, they would have to cross the hundreds of smaller mountain ranges of Nevada while carrying thousands of tons of lumber. This would be extremely difficult, if not impossible. Because this job took 30,000 men, and they had to work 1 month on and 2 months off, we can tell that this job was very strenuous and people had to travel great distances. Now, I don't know exactly how the wood was transported to the smallest detail, but I can think of 2 ways that this could happen. 1, the wood from Lebanon is dragged south to the Sea of Joppa, aka Lake Corcoran, then it is shipped even further south into a river that once connected it to the Sea of Havilah, aka Lake Tulare. Then the wood was transported into the Mojave Desert, aka Sinai, and moved northeast to Ezion Gabar, where the wood would have been shipped again via riverboat into Yehuda, aka Utah, then was carried north into the plain of Moreh, then into Jerusalem. And the second possibility is that the wood from Lebanon is dragged south to the Sea of Joppa, aka Lake Corcoran. Then the floats would go southward into the sea and make a western turn into the San Pablo Bay, eventually going into the Great Sea. They would then go south of California and Baja California and turn into the Gulf of California, aka the Red Sea, until making it into the Colorado River, going all the way into Yehuda, aka the land of Utah, and north into the plain of Moreh and into Jerusalem. The second route makes more sense to me because it requires very little land travel. Now, Yonah, aka Jonah, was also from the tribe of Zebulun. He was from the Zebulunite city of Gath-Hepher. He also used the port of Joppa in attempts to get to Tarshish. Because Tarshish was a faraway area, the port of Joppa would most likely be between the Great Sea and the Sea of Joppa, what is now known as the San Pablo Bay. This makes the second route I mentioned make more sense. Bethlehem was a city of Zebulun. Yasharal had two cities known as Bethlehem. We also had Bethlehem Yehuda. Bethlehem means house of bread. In order for the city to be known as house of bread, it must have grown grains for bread making. Because many grains grow wild throughout California, Nevada, and Utah, it is complicated to point out the exact location of Bethlehem. The last territory of Zebulun that I may be able to identify is the land of Nahalal. Nahalal means bushland, and there are no bushlands around Central Valley, California. That entire land is pure grassland, and further east is pure forest. But there is one area that's full of bushes east of Central Valley, and this is Red Hills Recreational Management Area. In this area, there are many varieties and species of bushes, and these bushes take up a lot of land. Compared to any other minor bushland that you might find east of Central Valley, this has to be the biggest bushland east of Central Valley. However, I must say, I'm not 100% certain that this is the ancient land of Nahalal, because ecosystems do tend to change, especially over a span of 2,000 years, especially when a major lake dries up in an area. So Nahalal could have been in a completely different place in ancient times, but let's just say it didn't change. Then that will be the biblical Nahalal. So the land of Zebulun is all the territory of eastern California. Its western border is the Sea of Joppa and the valley of Jiphthahiel. The border then passed to Issachar. The land of Issachar has a clear description in scripture. It was a land of mountains, valleys, volcanoes, and springs. This can be proven by the names of its towns. Hafarim means pits. A pit in a scriptural standpoint refers to a natural land formation where the ground is opened up, forming a large hole in the earth. Anaharath means gorge. A gorge is a very narrow valley. En-Gana means spring of gardens. En-Haddah means springs of sharpness. And Ramoth means high or elevated. Yahushua 19 and 22 states that Issachar bordered the Jordan River. This puts Issachar north of Yehuda and Benjamin. In southwestern Idaho, there is a large wasteland of pit-filled dried magma that is said to have come from a volcano that erupted hundreds of thousands of years ago. These pits are beautiful. Today, this land is called Craters of the Moon National Park. This area is completely breathtaking, like something off of a movie. This is the true land of Hafarim. Nothing like this is even remotely similar to anything in the Middle East. Now, Issachar also obtained the land of Anaharath, which means gorge. In Idaho, there is an 80-mile gorge going through the Salmon River Mountains. This gorge is called Royal Gorge. It is the largest gorge in Idaho, and is probably the same gorge where the city of Anaharath was built upon. Ganim means eye of gardens. The Hebrew letter Ayin represents the eye and is shaped like a circle. In Idaho, from satellite view, we can see a huge ring of huge, fruitful land in the middle of a desert. The ground there is moistened by Liddy Hot Spring. This area is literally a ring of gardens, just as the Hebrew word implies, eye of gardens. Now, En Haddah means eye or spring of sharpness. You may be wondering, how can a spring be sharp? Well, nowhere on earth but Idaho holds that answer. In eastern Idaho, along the True Jordan River, European settlers came upon 1,000 small springs. Today, much fewer remain, but among the few that do remain today, there are somewhat ambiguous details that show that these springs are indeed the springs of En Haddah. Again though, how can water be sharp? Well, that is open to one's interpretation and has no definite answer. But there are two ideas. Have you ever used a high pressure water hose and accidentally shot your bare hands with it and had to suffer the consequences of painful and sore skin? Or have you ever rode in a car with the windows down in the rain on a highway? How does that feel? Sharp, right? Well, this is one type of sharpness, water pressure and speed. But there is another perspective. What if the water being sharp refers to the taste? You know, like a fresh Sprite or sparkling water or any carbonated drink. Drinking such beverages will give you a sharp sensation in your mouth and throat. Let's take a look at the aforementioned springs in eastern Idaho. These hundreds of springs sit on an ancient volcanic hotspot in the earth. This means that there is strong possibilities of geysers in the area in the ancient past. Geysers have very high water pressures, so high in fact that some geysers have been known to waste away human skin. But here is what's very interesting. These springs are collectively called soda springs. They are called this because the water here is naturally carbonated and has the same sharp taste of soda. Another city of Issachar is Kishion, which meant hard ground. In Idaho, this city would have been near En Ganim and Hafarim. This is all volcanic land, and the soil there is rated very high in soil compaction maps. A soil compaction map is a map that shows how hard the soil is in any given area. The city of Ramoth, which means elevated or high place, is most likely built on the southern part of the Salmon River Mountains. Because this area is close to the aforementioned cities, and the southern part of the mountains are the most habitable area in the mountains. This is the area where the river is also more accessible. Now, dealing with the tribe of Issachar, I was only able to vaguely identify 6 of its 16 cities The other 10 cities are out of my reach of identification. I am not able to map out a clear border of Issachar, but it is clear that this tribe dwelt in southeastern Idaho.